recently, and she's got a great story, and I'm excited to have her on this morning. How you doing, Chuck? Oh, can we unmute Chuck, Amelia, or no?
I think I got it.
Okay, cool.
I'm doing better than a monkey in a banana tree.
How many of those trips have you been on with Augie?
I've been on three distribution trips:
Wow, that's awesome.
Kenya, Nicaragua, and Mexico.
Which one's your favorite?
You went to the one in Mexico, the
Yep.
Cozumel. You were there.
That was awesome.
They're all, as far as the distribution part, they're all just mind blowing. It just warms your heart. It's difficult to express, to see people that have gratitude. That's what I refer to as soul deep gratitude, and not
hmm
just the superficial gratitude. But
Yeah.
Kenya, I was there for 3 weeks, and it was just a trip of
Wow.
a lifetime.
That's awesome. We have tons of missionaries that we support um in Africa, and we're gonna talk a little bit about that today. I'm excited about that. Courtney actually was a missionary, so I've asked her to talk a little bit about her experience with that as well. So I'm super excited about today's meeting. Like I said, Courtney is new to my network, but I have just in the time I've got to meet her, I feel like sometimes God puts people in your life for a reason. I think all the time He puts people in your life for a reason, but I'm hoping that me and Courtney can have a long-term relationship for many, many years and be able to work with each other and help each other. But she's super smart. She's also very entertaining. You guys will like her. And I'm excited to have her. So I'm just going to kind of get started with my little spiel I've kind of go on for every single time we do these calls. Welcome you guys to the call. Appreciate for you guys for being here and taking some time. If you're watching this live or if you're watching this afterwards, either way, if I will say, there probably will be some questions today. So if you've got questions, please use the chat. We're gonna, try to answer those as much as we can on the fly. But because I know Courtney's topic is going to definitely bring some questions, and I'm excited about that. So make sure you guys are ready for that. Last month was with Alicia Merriman. If you guys weren't on that call, please go back and watch. You guys can watch all of our calls at goodsuccess.com/free real estate calls. You guys got that as well. I think you also can go to freerealestatecalls.com and find the website there to watch all of our previous calls. This is Courtney Fricke. Welcome. Is it Fricke or Fricke? Oh, can we unmute Courtney? Amelia, I think you got Courtney muted.
All
There you
good.
go.
It's Fricke, but I'm not
Fricke.
gonna lie, I respond to a lot of things.
Okay, just wanted to.
Like,
I didn't know if is the E silent or not, but it's Fricke. So that's awesome. We already got she's got putting these things on there already. Chuck, thanks for that. So I'm excited about our call today. Like I already said, me since last month, it has been a busy month. This is part of the reason why we had to have this call so late this month. But it has been a super busy month. We are out working on houses. Something I wanted, just a quick tip I wanted to, tell you guys about. And now in Northwest Indiana, it's a little different than in the South. So if you're in Florida, this is probably not, the best advice, right? But if you're in the Northeast, if you're in the Northwest, if you're in the Midwest, a lot of times you see how dirty this roof was? Like you see how dirty roofs can get at times. And what happens when you go up on a roof? Every single time you go on a roof, like you send a roofer out there, what does the roofer tell you? You need a new roof, right? Like there's never another option. There's never anything. But I'm going to tell you this, like we are actually going to replace this one section. This one section actually has a hole up here in this top corner. But the rest of this roof turned out pretty nice. The roof is only about 8 to 10 years old. And really, roofs should last 20, 25 years. They really should. They shouldn't last, 5, 6, 7 years. Now, again, Tom Nardone, he's in Florida. If you don't have a new roof in the last 10 years in Florida, insurance companies won't insure you. So just completely ignore what I'm talking about for Florida. But for most of us, if your roof is not leaking and it's got good granules on there, man, especially as rentals, keep that in mind. We washed this with a washing solution, posted this on Facebook as well. But just know that you can wash your roofs. There's lots of things going on there. We are starting new construction. And I'm excited about kind of adding that to our repertoire and things that we're doing. So we're excited about having footers in and making this happen. So I'm excited about bringing this to Gary, Indiana, and being able to build rentals for people and build a rent, but also even just build in the normal realm of things. My investors are excited about this, that loan money to me as well. They like the idea of new construction as well, and it's a little bit more systematic. I know Tom's had a lot of experience, and I keep seeing Tom's face pop up here in the new construction realm. And I'm excited about this. So this is some of the things that we've been doing. We had a couple trips with my family. This is the last trip that we have been able, or going to be able to take, or will take, I should say, with my daughter before she goes to college. So Lily is going to college this year. I let Edie plan our trip this year. Lily got to plan our trip last year, but we went down to Florida to Universal. And then we went to the Smoky Mountains. We went to Lookout Mountain. We went to Rock City. We went to Ruby Falls. And then on the way home, we went to Louisville Slugger in Louisville, Texas. So we had a really good time with our family. Got to see, this was really cool. If you guys have never been to the Louisville Slugger Museum and the Bat Factory, like they still make 1 million bats a year at this factory. I mean, it was pretty cool. If you're a major leaguer and you have a Louisville Slugger bat, it's made in this factory. So, to me, I don't think it's something that's earth shattering. It's not going to change my life, but it was a cool thing. It was definitely a cool experience to kind of see, the way that they make bats and how it's progressed over the years. That was really cool. My daughter also, had a tournament. So this was the first time she's been to the World of Tungsae-do, tournament. And she's been to nationals, she's been to regionals, and every time she goes, she always walks away with at least 3 medals, like at least a gold, a silver, bronze. She's had 2 golds and a silver. She's had 1 gold and 2 bronze. She's had 2 silvers and a gold. She always normally walks away with 3, but this was a whole new level. There's people from Europe are really serious about this. And so she walked away with 1 bronze. We were proud of her. And I'm not going to probably show you all this. But I think this was her forms. And I'll show you guys just a couple of seconds of this, but this was exciting for our family. And, she's a good girl. I'm really excited for her. And, she did a good job with this. So, I mean, there was, I think it was 1,500 kids that competed in this. And to kind of walk away with anything in her, she just became a black belt as well. So she was like the lowest kind of ranked person in her little thing. So she did a good job. We're proud of her for that. Also, we had 4th of July. I mean, geez, we had about a half an hour fireworks display with our family in the back of this. So we just had a really good time with that as well. Upcoming, I always want to continue to promote other people's events. We do have this. I know Tom's on here. I don't know if he can speak to this or if we can mute him or not. I'm assuming there's still some seats available for this. I don't know if the rates are still the same as they were as of this flyer, but I know I'm going to this. I know Jim Ingersoll is going to this. I know there's some other people that I know are going to be on this cruise. So if you guys haven't signed up for the cruise yet and you want to go on a amazing, I'm telling you, these are the big ships with Royal Caribbean. It's super fun. And you get to be with some super cool people. Tom Nardone and Tanya and Peggy put this on, and they do a really good job. I've been on 2 of these. I think they're doing one here in a couple weeks in August that I'm not able to go to. But I just want to promote this one here coming up next year. Also, Dealmaker. I know this is a little ways out, but March 18th through 21st, Dealmaker in March. And this is the one in Richmond. This is actually where I met Courtney this year, but I highly recommend this event as well. They're also doing a Dealmaker. If you guys are interested, you don't know the information about the one they're doing in October in Orlando. I think it's for raising private money. I'm going to try to make that. I can't promise it. I got a lot going on in this fall, especially with my daughter going to college. But I'm still going to try to make that at least a day or 2 of that if I can. But anyways, always support everything that Jim Ingersoll does. One of the best guys, I think, in the real estate realm in the United States. If you guys have not signed up for this, I'm telling you, we have less than 20 tickets available. We have 2 or 3 speakers on the call with us today that are going to be there. I'm excited about this. And we are wrapping some of our finalized things up. If you are a part of the VIP, please come in a day early on the 4th, and we're going to be doing a VIP dinner speaker sponsor dinner that night on me. And then the second night, we're going to do a networking event at the same location. And then on also, if you're going to be coming, if you guys are going to be there, please, please, please make sure you bring your real estate horror stories. We all have them. I'm sure Courtney can tell us a bunch, today on today's call if she wants, but we always have those deals that just don't work out the way that we think they're going to work out. But we have fun with it. On one night, we do Chicago style pizza because, all you people around the world, around the country don't have good pizza unless you live in Chicago. And we're kind of spoiled with good pizza up here. So we want to kind of share that with you guys as well. So that pizza party will be on us, but we'll also do real estate horror stories. We normally do like some contests and maybe like $100 gift card for whoever we think is the best real estate horror story. So I'm excited about that. Make sure you guys get your tickets. It'll be a fun event, I promise. I'm telling you, the speaker lineup that we have this year is, I think, one of the best speaker lineups I have seen an event in years. Super, super high level people that are going to be there. And trust me about this, it's going to sell out. You guys are going to want to be there. So make it happen. This is the last year that you're going to see these prices. I'm going to tell you that. So these are the prices that we've got up here for the VIP. You really do want the VIP. I wouldn't, at this point, for what we're offering for the VIP people, I wouldn't even think about doing the general admission. But if you guys just want to come and slip in and slip out, then maybe the general admission's for you. But if you guys want to, actually get the full benefit of the event, please just get the VIP and be done with it. But again, these prices are probably going to double going into next year. This will be the last time you'll see these prices at an event of like this. So make that happen. If you guys haven't joined the Facebook group, please go and join the real estate free for all Facebook group. Remember, be a conduit, not a bucket. Work to have to give. Everything that we do in life, I believe, should be not just for us. And it really should be so we can, and in order to have, you got to be a little bit of a saver. You got to be able to set aside, you got to be able to live below what you're making, right? So there's some work that has to happen in order to make that happen. But I believe that we're all called to be able to be helpers of other people and not just to live for ourselves. This is not a selfish group. I'm never going to promote selfishness. I'm never going to promote that. I hope you guys know that about me. And I'm going to continue to preach it. Be a conduit, not a bucket. If you guys are interested in being an investor in our Conduit Capital Fund, or if you guys need money for deals, please get with Adam. And also, one more last slide before we go. And if you're local and you're watching this, I know we have a couple local people I'm seeing on here. We do have a meetup group tonight. So July 30th, 5:30, doors open right here at our office. Same place we're going to have the free for all event. Brandon Rainwater is going to speak tonight about being a real estate investor as a realtor, or being a realtor or being a real estate investor and thinking, hey, should I become a realtor? And I think that's actually a good kind of segue into today's, the next call. I forgot. We have one more slide. So the next call is actually going to be Jim Ingersoll. The next call is going to be August 27th. I'm not going to give him I'm not going to tell you about him. If you don't know about him, go look him up. Trust me. He's one of the most genuine guys. I've already talked about him a lot on this call today, but he's going to be our next call. Pray for Jim. He's going to be having surgery in the next couple of weeks. So please pray for him, but he's going to be on our next call. He's agreed to be on our next call, and I'm excited about having him. So without further ado, Courtney, the floor is yours. Thank you for coming and sharing and being with us today. Appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Hey, I love that. All right, let's go ahead and get the road showing today. So I'm going to talk with you guys today. First of all, Tom, thank you so much for having me. I see some great folks in the audience today, and some who I don't have the pleasure of knowing. So I would love to change that at some point. But I want to talk with you guys today about being a solutions-based investor. And so I want to kind of break down what that means. But first, before I do that, I want to kind of share a little bit about me, but then I want to be quick on this part so that we can get the ball rolling and talk about stuff that you can actually apply to your investing and your other businesses. So a few things. Top left screen appears a photo of me at the North Shore Real Estate Investors Association. I started a investor meetup in the greater New Orleans area, so the suburbs of New Orleans, back in 2018. I've been in this business for the last 10 years. And I did this as a way to get around like-minded folks. Tom talked about there being one tonight in his area. I am literally going to a different meetup in my area, actually in Mississippi tonight. And meetups are huge. They have been a huge part to my journey. Running one for many, many years was a huge privilege of mine. Down at the bottom, you can see where I have had the privilege of being on the radio, one of the largest radio stations in the greater New Orleans area that syndicates into multiple states, also online and stuff. But actually my co-host is on the show today, Paul LaGrange. He's actually from the show. He's in today in the audience hanging out with us. And I absolutely love that. I was not expecting him. I texted him, I said, hey, it is great to see you today. But Paul has actually been doing this show for the last almost 20 years now. I've been doing it for the last handful of years, where it's a live call-in show, and I answer all the real estate related questions. And then I also, for many, many years, wrote articles for the top producing agents in the New Orleans area. So the ones who were the top dogs hitting the top charts with volume. And I wrote articles for them every month, educating them on investing as well as the sticky situations. And so for many years, I have educated the public. And I'm thankful for all of those platforms, truly. But at the end of the day, I want to tell with you like what I do as an investor. So this is one of my favorite photos that someone took of me. Actually, a real estate agent took of me. This is a picture of me at a closing table, closing a subject to transaction at a title company. This gentleman in the hat, he's actually a seller, and I was able to help him out of a situation. And so it's one of my favorite candid shots of me. I didn't know she was taking the photo, but it's going to play in today's talk. So as I mentioned, I've been doing this for the last 10 years. I am full-time as a real estate investor, but I call myself solutions-based. We'll talk more about what solutions-based in a little bit means. But the majority of my career, I have been a creative real estate investor. I used a line of credit from the bank very early on, but other than that, I've never gotten a bank loan or anything to purchase the properties I've purchased. Historically, 60% of the deals I was buying, I was using private money. Individuals were funding my deals. And then 40% of them, I was getting like seller financing, subject to deals, things like that. I would say the last little bit here, probably the last maybe 1 to 2 years, but for sure currently I am at 80% creative, where the majority of the deals I am doing right now is subject to seller financing, lease options, stuff like that. And about 20% is actually cash, where I'm getting private money. The majority of what I do today is buy and hold. I got started flipping, then I grew one of the largest wholesale companies in the suburbs of New Orleans. But then I moved into holding properties. And so the majority of what I do is I have rentals both in Louisiana and in Mississippi, or I buy stuff to sell on terms. So that's a little bit about me and my history. But one of the things, Tom wanted me to share one is my background is actually in missions. So that first photo up there is a baby face of me from, I think, 2007. That it was either 2006 or 2007 that photo was taken. I went on my first missions trip in 2004. I went to Peru. I'm gonna date myself here. I had just turned 14, and I had gone off during the summer in between, junior high and my freshman year. And I went for a 2-week missions trip to Lima, Peru, and it changed my life. And that trip, I remember it changed my life so much. My mom took me to, back in the day, what was called Mervyn's, and to a retail store to buy me, long-term, like durable luggage, because she's like, you're doing this again. And I went on to go to 20 plus different countries. Many of those trips I did, this photo in the top is from, I think, 2007. I was in Thailand for 2 months, my summer between my junior year and my senior year. So I would do stuff like that. I think instead of going on a senior trip in high school, I went on a missions trip to Amsterdam and stuff. And so instead of going to college, I worked for a missions agency in Texas, where we sent thousands of missionaries across the world every year. So I also, I got a ton of training experience from them. Worked in a call center where we, not only promoted the trips, but then we brought support for people who signed up for the trips. We helped them fundraise. We helped them go through all the logistics of, actually going from, hey, I want to go on a mission trip to all the way until where they got on it. And that taught me a lot. And then I moved home for a little bit. And then in 2013, I moved to Thailand for an entire year. I lived over there. Out of all the countries I've been to Thailand 4 times. And that country did something as far as I was very drawn to it and the people there. And so in 2013, I went there and I served at a college age church. So it was a city of 500,000 people. And I went and worked with it's more of a church that's centered around some of the local colleges in that large city that was not a tourist town. But then I also did a lot of work with different nonprofits. So we did, trauma, basically trauma training and business training and vocation training for women who had just gotten out of sex trafficking so that they could then kind of assimilate back into society, but then also learn a new skill to bring into society. We did things like that. I worked with various different orphanages, including an HIV orphanage, where when I came home in 2013, and this will be the last story before I jump into more about real estate. When I came home in 2013, I had left everything there, came home for a wedding. My sister got married, and I literally left my apartment full of my stuff, flew home for my sister's wedding, and I was scheduled to be a house mom at a orphanage for HIV children who basically they lived in a house, and I would help them, get ready for school, make sure that they were, they had meals and kind of all that. And that is the year that when I left, there was 1 million people in Bangkok in the streets protesting, and that is when they had their coup. And it ended up happening where I never went back. So I had to eventually, I think a year and a half later, I got a little bit of my stuff back. But that's a little bit of my history with being in missions. I'm very thankful for it. I'm very thankful for what it taught me. It taught me a lot of skills that translates into real estate. Very specifically, I believe that it translates into, that closing table photo that we're talking about, where I'm sitting across the seller explaining to him, what's going on with this subject to deal, where I'm helping him avoid foreclosure. And so I have a quote here by Mother Teresa where it says, "Let no one ever come to you without leaving better and happier. Be the living expression of God's kindness, kindness in your face, kindness in your eyes, kindness in your smile." And I believe in having kindness in your deal making. Even when I deal with people, one of my biggest niches is stopping foreclosures. And a huge part to this is that I believe that no matter where I'm meeting someone, and in the majority of the time, I'm dealing with people who have some sort of major problem. Okay. They're facing foreclosure. They're going through a divorce. They're an investor that they need to liquidate. They have a tax problem. They are, maybe they are, upside down. They need speed for some reason. At the end of the day, I believe as a solutions-based investor that I can show up and I can help people. Now, previously, whenever I was doing missions, I helped people for free, right? I did it, out of, a sense of a calling to help people, right? To serve God, to love people. But at the end of the day, there's had been a mental shift, because now I help people, but I'm building wealth doing so. And one of the biggest ways I've been able to bridge that mental shift is the way that I deal with people and how I treat them. And so that's a huge part of what I want to talk about. I'm wearing a shirt, and it's going to be one of my last slides too, but I wear this shirt pretty often where it says how you do real estate matters. And a huge part of this is it's not just the technical side, which I'm about to get technical, like real estate technical with you. I'm going to give you some case studies and talk through some of these creative financing deals that I do. And the technical is so important. It's the paperwork, it's how you structure the deal, all of that, the numbers that you buy it at, all of that. But at the same time, I also believe that not only does that matter, but it's how you treat people. And that's something that I do my job right today. I want to emphasize that point to you, is that you too can be a solution-based investor where you can help folks, wherever you may find them, and with the situation that they have with real estate, and you can do it where you can lay your head down at night, and that you can run into them in the grocery store and hold your head high, knowing that you have improved their situation. You have been able to leave them better than you find them, regardless of if you do business with them or not. And that's always one of my main objectives.
Appreciate that, Courtney. I'm just going to jump in here just before you get into all this technical stuff, because I really appreciate her sharing that. I didn't even know all of that about her on the mission side. And the one thing I wanted to point out was the fact that she said that when she was 14 years old, that one trip changed her life. Mm-hmm. And I want to, first of all, encourage every single person that's on this call or that will listen to this call ever. If you've never been on a missions trip, like, you need to go. This isn't just something that I say. This is, I mean, I try to go on 3 or 4 trips a year, but I was on a missions trip in Mexico when I was 16 years old. And I feel like I kind of had the same experience. I didn't go down the same path that Courtney went and actually spend, several years on the field. But I believe that it is a life-changing event. Even at the beginning of this call, before we even talked, we talked to Chuck about, him just getting back from a missions trip. I promise you, if nothing else, and it's so interesting, right, Courtney? Like, we go on these trips, and every single time I take a missions trip with new people that have never been, this is what always happens. People always think that they're there to go help somebody else. And what they end up finding is that the real person that needed the trip was you. So the first thing I would recommend is, please go on a trip. Like, if you don't know trips to go on, please get with me. We're going to have Augie, who does trips, speak at our event here in September, but go on a trip. And then second of all, I'm also super passionate about getting kids to go. Kids are really, when kids are in that, 14 to 20-year-old stage of life, they're very impressionable. They haven't done anything in life. They haven't been stupid enough or old enough yet to be able to mess up their life. And I am super passionate about that. I have been sponsoring our Christian high school that our kids go to. Instead of doing a senior trip every year, they do a senior/missions trip. So they spend 3 days doing fun stuff and doing things you would never be able to do here in America. But then they also spend 3 days in ministry, and they get to actually see the way people live. They get to see how it affects people, and how they can also be a conduit in their whole life, and how their purpose on this life may not be to be a missionary, but it might be to support them, or it might be to have community with them, and to give them support in different ways. So I appreciate you bringing that up, Courtney. And I just wanted to kind of add that, because in my opinion, this is way more important than real estate. and I'm glad that you opened up with this, and then how that has transcended now into you being a better person and really dealing with people the right way and with kindness. I think if our mindset changes on who people are, and that everything is not just for us, and there's people that have it way worse than us, and we're thankful for what we have, we'll be better deal makers, and we'll be better at what we do. So I don't want to take up any more of your time, Courtney, but I wanted to add that.
Sure. No, I completely agree. And at the end of the day, there's a level, if you took something from that, I also want to encourage you to understand is, number one, I was able to take skill sets from that has, I didn't go to college, but I was able to take so many skill sets from those times, whether it was learning how to deal in emergency situations because you were traveling abroad, and stuff goes on. I mean, I got put into various leadership positions on those missions trips. There's so many things like that. I've been able to help people and learn to be vulnerable with someone, but still have enough leadership conversation to get the conversation, to a point where we need it to go, and help the person in front of me. And so those things have been huge. So let's talk about how I've transitioned this into real estate. So this is my background. And in 2014, so 2013, I come back. 2014, I get a real estate job. It had benefits. It had salary and the benefits. And when I realized at that point I wasn't going back to Thailand, I was like, that's what I need. And it was a means to an end job, but it was one of the next pivotal moments in my life, was getting introduced to that real estate job. So I got in the industry then, and it was actually managing a marina that was failing. But I eventually, one of the tenants at the marina and he liked how I operated, and we actually made an offer on the marina together. I'm so thankful that offer did not go through. Um, but it was the beginning of a lot of my journey. So let's go ahead. Let's talk through some of these technical sides. So look, I'm going to talk about how I do deals with agents, but I always like to lead with this. I'm not an attorney. I'm not an agent. I don't pretend to be either, but this is a presentation that what I'm going to be sharing, the two different case studies, I want to share from someone who's out there in the streets doing it. I don't want to share from any type of like hypothetical or anything like that. I want to just share from what I've experienced. And I want to share with someone who does creative financing, both direct to seller and through agents. Yeah. So who here, and I want to see, put in the comments, number one, if you're a licensed agent, put a 1 in the comment. It could be any state. You don't have to. All I'm curious is how many people are in here are licensed. A lot of times, you'd be surprised with how many people who are actually licensed agents in investor rooms. I believe that's going to be your topic tonight at your investor meetup. I think it's something that's important. But another question I have is, if you have bought a great deal from an agent, whether it's on or off market, put a 2 in the chat. I'd be curious, because so many times when I talk about how I do deals with agents, so many people say that, oh, there's just so much hesitation there. But a lot of times I like to just kind of speak to it. So we've got, at least, one agent in the room, and then we've got a handful of people who've bought great deals from agents. So we already have proof that it can happen. So these are all different properties that I've done, and I could add tons and tons and tons more, where these are all deals that I was able to buy with agents involved. Now, they weren't all on the MLS. Some of them were pocket listings and things like that. But let's see, we have 2 of these are subject to deals that I was able to do. And then let's see, 2 of them were really low cash offers. We've got a seller finance one and 2 seller finance ones. Now, I'm not going to break all of these down for you, but these are just a few photos I can show where, again and again, I have been able to do deals with agents. One of these, it was even the agents, their childhood home, where they came to me and said, Courtney, can you please help my family? That is always huge when an agent, I've had so many agents come to me saying, hey, Courtney, can you help my family? Huge, huge, huge compliment. So let's break down what some of these deals look like. First of all, though, before I get into that, so many people, when they hear that I'm doing deals with agents, they think that I'm just over on the MLS, making a whole bunch of blind offers. Like that's all I do all day. A really big trend right now is that folks are being taught through, gurus in the internet, that they're to go make creative offers on the MLS. So this right here is what's called a letter of intent, usually used in commercial, but it's being taught to be used with houses that are listed by agents, where literally this house is listed and people that are literally sending these LOIs for subject to or seller financing as kind of like a blind offer to agents. I literally get 5 to 10 calls a week. I kid you not, between 5 to 10 calls a week from agents saying, what the heck is subject to? Or, hey, I just got this LOI. Is this a scam? Have you seen this before? I'm getting so many phone calls. It's ridiculous, but this is not what I do. So I'm not making blind offers, right? One of my favorite things to talk about is some of my philosophies and my principles. So creative finance principle that I have is that the best creative deal is custom, right? So it's not blind, like, all right, your purchase price is 300. Let me just divide that by 360 and throw that out there. But instead, the majority of the time I'm trying to make an offer based on their situation, rather than just make an offer and, make them mad up front, right? Because at the end of the day, I am coming in to provide a solution, not just, throw something against the wall and hope it sticks. So again, a lot of people have this belief that, if it's a deal with the realtor, it's no longer a deal. Hey, they've told me, hey, Courtney, I prefer going off market, direct to motivated sellers. I've also been told that, agents don't understand creative deals. They just sink the deal. They get in the way. They cause issues. I've even had people, obviously, with stuff going on saying like, hey, eventually I'm not going to even have to use an agent. Like it's a model that's dying. I have heard so much, but again, I think that is something where a lot of investors get in their own way by not being willing to work with agents. And so I want to kind of, if anything, I want to be able to show you that there's another way, that there is a way that you can actually do deals with agents and it be a profitable model. And let's kind of talk through that. So a lot of you from all over, just from looking who's on the call, I know you're from all over. I'm based out of New Orleans, right? My market is facing a ton right now. And so, as a shift in the market or, a changing market happens, it's important to understand that business as usual cannot stay business as usual. So one of the big things that I started to do was I shifted away from having a high overhead from direct to seller marketing. So remember when I said I was doing a ton of flipping and wholesaling, but I had a ton of overhead from marketing. I was, bandit signs, cold calling, cold texting, direct mail, all of that. And so I knew that high overhead cost plus the support staff to handle that. But one of the other things is in this changing market, there is a demand for, thinking outside the box, being more creative. And so the other thing there is I also had to change up the language in my marketing. It's no longer, I pay cash and I close fast. At the end of the day, that we buy houses message, yes, so many people use it, but at the end of the day, I've had to also change up my message because, we buy cash, that can throw out the creative option, right? So be careful in the language you're using. Because if you're setting up saying, hey, I buy cash, well, maybe they're like, yeah, well, all my cash offers have been less than what my mortgage is. So understand different people in different markets require different things, whether that's your being mindful of your budget for running your business, but also for, the language you're using with sellers. And again, right now, what I'm seeing is that there's more motivated sellers and problems to solve. But there's, so if like, for example, if you're wholesaling, there's less buyers who are buying. For me as buy and hold, I'm being very cognizant of running my numbers and being mindful of what I say yes to. And I'm also being very careful in my neck of the woods with flipping. And so when a market shifts, it's important to say, let me, acknowledge what I'm doing as a business. Let me look at my budget. Let me look at my marketing. Let me look at the strategies I'm using, and let me take inventory and make sure that they are, that I should continue. And so a little bit of an idea here is back in the day, 99% of my deals came from one deal source, which was direct to seller, me going to them. At the height of it, I was paying $7,500 a month on, that was on direct mail plus cold calling, through, using third-party services, having the big wig CRM, all of that. At the end of the day, I did not love that model. Me personally, I have a lot of friends who do models like this where, they have a high overhead seller. Their main thing is like direct to seller. But I didn't love it. Now, to give you an idea about my business model, it is 100% referral based or repeat business. And so I made that shift. And part of the reason why I talk about my business model shift is because I feel like the only thing that is talked about online is the model where it's go direct to seller, spend a lot of money in marketing, all of this. My model, I'll be honest, some months I don't even go over 500. I don't I don't cold call. I haven't cold called in many years now at this point. At the end of the day, I have 3 different deal sources. We've already talked about how I do deals with agents. The second one is other industry professionals. So that can be everything from attorneys, insurance, home inspectors, to other investors. And then the third one is where sellers are sent my way. And so where basically someone I know says, hey, you need to call Courtney, and they reach out to me. So those are generally my 3, sources of deals. Now, again, it's all referral. It's all, where it is either repeat business or referral. And it's just a different model. So let's talk through what these deals look like. And if you're wanting to kind of change this, just understand it's going to require you to think about your business differently. And especially if you're wanting to think about doing deals with agents, like I'm going to talk about in these case studies, is you have to be willing to say, yes, I believe that these things can happen with agents. Yes, I believe I can run a business like this. Yes, I believe that this can be successful, and understand it takes time to make that transition as well. So here's a core belief that I have, is that apart from interference, so the first interference would have to be great and timely direct to seller marketing. So, apart from a seller receiving that direct mail from you that day that they're thinking about, selling their home, or apart from strong top of mind branding, right? Where you're just known around town as the person that buys houses, that strong brand. Or the third thing is, unless someone gives a personal word of mouth referral where they say, like, hey, Courtney took great care of me, you should call her, she can help you with this. Apart from any of those 3, so that timely and powerful direct to seller marketing, that strong top of mind branding, or personal word of mouth referral, a lot of motivated sellers go to real estate agents first. I'm a firm believer of that. I'm a firm believer that the Great Wall of China does not separate on and off market. So the same way that motivated sellers exist off market, they also exist on market. And that is one thing that when I had that mindset shift, I said, okay, everyone's chasing the off market sellers. And I know that world well, right? Like, that was the world I was operating in. I said, hey, what if I was able to also tap into the ones who were on market? And so I truly believe you have a choice about that. You can either ignore real estate agents, which a lot of investors do. They say, no, I'm just going to stick to my marketing and try to get in front of the seller, interfere, get in front of them before they choose to go list with an agent. You can make enemies. And the way I believe a lot of investors do this is go make 100 lowball offers, and some poor soul has to make all of those written offers on their behalf. Or the third one is to create allies, and we'll talk about that as well. So let's get in the first case study. So this is a property where one of the things is I used my branding. So one of the things I do with branding is, social media. I mentioned the radio show with Paul, who's with us here today. This is a woman who actually reached out from the radio. I think she actually first called on the radio, and she said, Courtney, I inherited a duplex from my dad. It is a great, like, thank you, Dad. I appreciate it. It's great that I inherited it, but I'm done. I don't want to be a landlord anymore. There's about to be some issues. I don't want to pay for a roof soon. I don't want to, this, that, or the other. She said, Courtney, what should I do? And so I asked her, I said, well, what is your biggest goal? Is it, to get the highest dollar? Is it to move this quickly? What is your goal? And she said, well, I want the very most I can absolutely get. And she had, told me it was a duplex that one side was vacant. I said, well, look, from what I had known, it was generally in good condition, enough to get a loan on it. From what I had known. And so I gave her the advice. I said, well, go put it on the MLS and have someone move into one side who's going to buy it with a loan. They're going to pay the most because they're not thinking profit necessarily, because they're not only thinking profit, they're also thinking use. So like a house hack. And so she's like, okay. So she went and listed it. It sat on the market for over 70 days. The market started shifting, and she called me and she said, Courtney, please just come by my duplex. And so I talked with her, and she ultimately said, So she had it listed at 155. I knew that she owned it free and clear. So she inherited it. It was free and clear, no mortgage, nothing. But she refused. I said, well, why don't you drop the price? It's been 70 days. And she had 2 buyers go under contract, and they found out that one of the joists under their house was cracked. Not a major repair, but at the end of the day, it is, stuff that would scare a lot of people, right? Especially if they don't know what they're doing, especially if they're first time home buyer in that price point. And so ultimately I said, well, look, why don't you keep having buyers walk away? Why don't you just lower the price? And she was like, no, I want what I want. And she had gotten to a few offers from investors under 100,000 for cash. And I said, look, I'll be very honest. That's most likely where I'm going to be at too. And she was like, well, she's like, I'm not going to take anything under 100, and I want what I want. What options do I have? And I said, well, look, if you're open to all options, let me come meet with you. Let me tell you how I can get you the 155 that you want, and just see if it's something you would be open to. I go out there, I meet with her, and at that time, one of my business partners was with me. And when the meeting went into the second hour, so I had been there over an hour, he rolled his eyes because he knew I was closing the deal. But he's a quick, fast cash offer guy. And the majority of my creative finance deals either come in the second hour, or they come, pretty quickly because there's a strong motivation or strong referral. But this one, it was one of those things where we spent time talking, and basically I was able to structure a deal. So if you look here, the purchase price was $82,000. She told me she would not take less than 100 cash, but I said, look, this is really where 82 was about where my cash offer was. But I was able to buy it for 82,000 on seller financing. It's 360 payments. So 360 payments divided by 12, that's 30 years. There's no balloon on this. This woman was 63 years old when we did this deal. And I said, look, I have every intention of making that last payment to you when you're 93, and we're going to celebrate. We're going to go get lunch or something. But this is a deal where I inked it out, 5% interest, $440 a month is the principal and interest. So when you add taxes, insurance, and stuff like that, which is really high right now, it's still about $1,000 a month is my monthly, PITI. But I get $2,000 in rents. And so this is a great cash flow machine. Unfortunately, it is in New Orleans East, so it is in a rough area. But at the end of the day, I was able to write a solution for her. If you look here, when she had it, she had $700 a month because only one side was rented out. It had been, her dad had that tenant, you know, $700 a month. They had never gone up in rent. It was way below market rents. Market rent's 1,000. It was at 700, and she only had one side rented out for years. And so, really, after she had taxes and insurance, I was really replacing the income she was currently getting, but I was relieving her of all the headaches. If insurance and taxes go up, if the tenant calls, if there's repairs needed, I basically kept her in that same income stream, but removed all the headaches. And the real twist here is I was able to give her that 82,000 at 5% interest. But when I broke down to her what she would get over time, it was that 150, it was $158,000. And when we talked through this, I said, look, it's kind of like the lottery. I can give you a large cash sum. Well, I can give you the lump sum, but it's not going to be large. But at the same time, I can also talk with you how I can give you payments, and it can be like an annuity. And I can give you more. So which one do you want? Do you want the small lump sum, or do you want basically the annuity over time? And she chose this annuity over time. And I have seen her, I go see her every year in person, but we talk throughout the year, maybe once or twice. And on numerous occasions when I, pull up to her house to maybe bring her Christmas gift, she'll say, hey, my little retirement plan. And, when I walk up to her, I do a little dance because that's a level how she sees us now. She's a retired, I believe she was in the school board, but she teacher, so very, technical woman. But if you look here, I brought out of pocket $7,600. For $7,600, that covered this part. Just remember, it was listed with an agent, so I had to cover the commissions because at the end of the day, I don't go around agents. I don't try to kick them out of deals. They had a legally binding, listing agreement. And at the end of the day, I also paid for closing costs. So this is actually a zero down money down to the seller. The seller did not walk away with any money. I did buy it as is. And the other part of that is, again, it's a 30-year seller financing, no balloon at 5% interest. And I was able to get her the really what she wanted. But so tell me this. So this deal, let's just say cash flow currently is around 1,000. It'll improve when our insurance situation improves. A reminder here, I had zero marketing cost to this other than the brand that I was building. But if you look, I want to make sure I'm going in the right direction on this one. But if you look here on this one, this is, the zero marketing cost, right? I'm not having to cold call this woman. I'm not having to send her direct mail, follow up, all of that. But is this a deal that you would want? Put a 1 in the chat, so if you're looking here, the 2,000 a month in rents, your PITI on a bad day is 1,000 a month. If this is a deal that you would want, put a 1 in the chat. I want to see that because, 1,000 a month in cash flow, 30-year seller financing, no balloon, at a good interest rate, with an individual, I'm bringing 7,600 out of pocket. So what, it took me 8 months to, to recoup that, so many people often say, hey, this is a deal that they would want. But let me actually say something that I actually loved this deal on paper, but I hated doing this deal. The reason for that is because this was an agent who I did not know who had this listing, and she basically fought the entire time. It was basically CPR. And so I eventually, when me and the seller got on the same page about what we wanted that day when I went to the property and met with her, we got on the same page about, where I needed to be at numbers wise. And, we went a little back and forth, but we landed. She ultimately came back to me and she said, Courtney, I said, hey, we need to do something about your agent. So, let me reach out to her. Maybe she'll do dual agency and we can kind of move this along quickly. But I called her and she did not want to do dual agency. She didn't believe in it. She didn't want to do it. So I said, okay, that's fine. I called someone up and I said, do you want to make some easy money shuffling paper? And they did. But then ultimately we're going back and forth and this agent is like telling her client she should never do this deal. She's wanting to change every part of what me and the seller had agreed on. And basically I'm doing CPR the entire time. And this is what investors mean when they say they don't love doing deals with agents, right? The agent's like, bankrate.com today says that the average interest rate is, 5%. And so, we had previously agreed on 4, but, I said, okay, let's go to 5%. There is a level that she was like, you shouldn't do a 30-year loan. You should do it with a balloon in 5 years. You should get a down payment. You should do it as a in Louisiana, we call them bond for deed, but you should do it as a contract for deed instead of seller finance where the title transfers because it's more expensive if she defaults. She had all these things, right? And ultimately, one of the big things there is that the rapport I had built with the seller was so strong that we were able to work through each one of them and still close this deal. The reason I don't love this is because I dealt with an agent I didn't know. And I ultimately got on the phone with her and she admitted she had never done a creative deal. I said, do you have a broker that can help you? And she was like, well, my broker hasn't done a ton of these in her career as well. I said, okay. And a huge principle here in the creative world is a confused mind says no. And so that's a huge part of this is understanding that, ultimately, if you want to, especially if you're doing deals with agents, I generally do not do, again, blind offers with agents who I don't know, who are not willing to, think outside the box, even if they're not familiar with it. Because if there's an established relationship, they're willing to consider these, creative deals if there's that established relationship and that trust. And so I hated the fact that we had to do CPR this entire part of this deal. Tom, did you have something?
Yeah, no, I was just going to ask, this might be in the weeds a little bit, but I just want to know what your take is there are some investors that would just say, okay, I'll give you your 155, but it's
Excellent.
going to be over 30 years. They don't really offer any interest. It's just kind of it's just payments,
Yep.
on that. Overall, is your take that you'll take either? I've heard different takes on this. Like some people really
Great
believe there
question.
should be interest. Some people really think, oh, I should just offer, because that way it looks like you're offering
Yep.
a higher offer. I know there's kind of also, if you pay
Cool.
off early, yeah, the lower is with interest is better. What's your take on that whole offering interest
So
versus not offering interest?
this is a two-part question. So let me answer it. And I love that you asked this. So this one would have given me 155,000 at 0% interest all day long for 30 years. I refuse to take it though. So there's a level there that in the creative world, I believe people, when someone's willing to do terms, they kind of throw their investor brain out. I am not a fan of that. I want to still think critically about the deal, even if seller financing subject to whatever is on the line, because I want to consistently do safe deals. So this was going to be a rental for me, right? At 82,000, one of the things I do in my due diligence is I went and looked up what it was assessed for. It was assessed for $76,000. And so a huge part to that was if I would have bought it at 155, the property taxes would have doubled and it would have impacted my cash flow.
That's true.
Most people don't look at that, right? And so I am not a fan of give a seller any number, divide it by 360 payments, and that be your offer. The majority of time, that doesn't make sense. Every now and then I've made it make sense where, it worked. But at the majority of time here, I tell them all the time, hey, let me show you how I can get you that number. Now, the second part was an objection. You mentioned like a prepayment. One of the objections that the agent has was that basically she was like, this woman is going to swindle you. She is going to buy this property and within, 6 months refinance or sell it. And she got it for 82,000 versus, the 155 that you wanted. And whenever that line came up in the email that of all the agents' objections to my offer, and I said, Miss Karen, we talked about this. What are your thoughts on this? She goes, yes, Courtney, we talked about this. I know that you're going to put in the seller finance documents at closing, basically a prepayment penalty. So the way that I protected, so I made a promise, right, that I would get her 158 and that I would give it to her over 360 payments. But at the end of the day, 30 years is a long time to say, hey, what might happen. And so I said, look, I know that I'm offering you in the 158. Yeah, it's structured with 82,000 going to principal and 76,000 and some change going to, interest. But at the end of the day, I know I'm committing to 158. It just looks kind of different in the breakdown of principal and interest. And so ultimately, what I built into the seller finance closing documents was a clause that said that the prepayment was equal to whatever the remaining interest was. So if I had only paid 6,000 of the 76,000, I would owe her, the principal balance plus the remaining, interest balance. Basically, she was getting her 158, regardless if I paid it off early or not. And I was going to build the paperwork and draft the paperwork to the situation and not just have like a, fill in the blank document. And so the seller was completely fine with that objection because her and I had already talked how I was going to protect her. And so that's a huge part to, again, if you make a promise, build your paperwork to protect both parties. And so ultimately, and don't be like, hey, well, no, I in my head, I know that if I pay it off, I'm going to owe her. Well, I don't know if a proverbial bus might hit me. And so I want my heirs to know. I want everything in writing that we agreed to protect both parties. And so this is one of those situations there where she was completely fine with, how I got to her 158. And it was something that we were able to structure the paperwork to make the deal make sense. And Tom, I'll say one last thing. This is one last little kicker here is whenever I do long-term creative deals with sellers, one of the things that I do is I ask if they have a will, specifically if I'm doing seller financing. I said, look, I don't need to know what's on the will. I just need to know if you have one and what attorney has it. And then if they're like, well, I have it myself, then I want it, my attorney to have it. I don't need to know what it says. I just need to know if, I'm making payments and I'm trying to get in touch with her and I can't find her and I find out she's passed away sometime in those 30 years, I want to be able to say, I know which attorney to call who has the documents so then I can continue the payments to her heirs, right? And so a huge part to that is she did not have a will here. So a part of my purchase also included a simple will being worked up by the law firm that also did my closing. And so I was not a part of that transaction in the sense of knowing, sitting in on the meeting, knowing what it's about. I just paid the bill and it was less than a few $100. It was a simple, thing there where as far as cost for me. But it allowed us both peace of mind. She got a ton of perceived value from it, like actual value, but also perceived value. And if anything happens to her, I now know what attorney to call. And that's something that I believe it's again, how you do real estate matters. It's not like that is both technical, but also how you take care of people.
That's good. No, that's really good advice. What back to the tax question though. Again, like I've heard this from different angles on the, hey, do I want to buy it? So you're looking at it from, I'm buying this for 82 because I'm still getting a deal as an investor. And then that makes sense to me. But and also property taxes obviously is a benefit to buy it lower. On the flip side, your depreciation is also much lower from getting the tax benefit from buying it at a lower price, and your appreciation and your capital gains exposure is going to be also much higher if you go, if and when you go to sell. So just some things to consider on all of that. And then if she didn't have that in her paperwork when it comes to, my prepayment penalty, the other thing too there is if it was to ever be paid off early, if that wasn't in there, then really just the principal would be something that would be owed there. So a bunch of things to consider when doing seller finance.
Look, absolutely. And then also think about this. Number one, she had inherited in 2014 and we did this still in 2022. And so a big part of that is when, she had some potential capital gains tax to pay on this. And so one of the things we sat down and talked about is, if we have that lower principal amount,
that's helps
then
her.
then it would help her. Now, we also talked about how she's taxed with interest. Sometimes a lot of people gloss over when you talk about taxes, and I'm talking Uncle Sam taxes.
Oh yeah.
A lot of people, when it comes to income taxes, they gloss over. They're like, hey, I don't need to know that. That doesn't apply to me. No, no, no. Go learn how these situations, how the income taxes work, so you can solve problems for other people. Because at the end of the day, that was one thing that was helpful in the situation. But then the second part of that was, also by lowering, I'm not a big fan of just cutting agents' commissions to cut them. But at the same point there, I was able to make the deal make sense. But think about the commission that I paid. I paid it on the 82,000, not on the 158. And so like when it comes down to it, there's a lot of things that are impacted with how you structure a deal. So many people just say, hey, let me just throw a random number out there. Because again, what if this property, listed at 155, and let's just say I could have made the deal work at 155 and I would have, but what if someone comes in and say, hey, I'll give you, 250,000 if you give me 0% interest and all this. But then, there's an agent involved. Now you're having to pay commissions on that. You're like, so understand that there's impacts on all of these different things. This is where I encourage you to know how to run your numbers and how to run your numbers safely, because there's a big difference. And I am going to go hear one of my main mentors, Leon Johnson, speak in Mississippi at an investor meetup. And Leon taught me that if you put two brand new houses right next to each other, they were built in the same day, finished by the same builder, same floor plan, everything. One of them can be they're worth the same amount, they can rent the same amount, all of that. One of them could be a great deal and one of them can be a terrible deal. And the main difference there is your financing, because if one of them had 6-month balloon at, even at 5% interest, but a 6 month balloon, or if the other one was at 8% interest, but at 30-year no balloon, one of them's safer financing than the other. And so when it comes down to deal making, I highly recommend you find the way to work towards the safest financing possible. And all the things that I'm talking through here are technical, but it's towards safety, both for myself and the seller. And so keep that in mind when you deal make. Think of all parties involved, and you want to say, hey, how can I do this deal safely, and at the same time, all parties are happy.
Good advice.
All right. All right. So here's some things that it's important is, so we kind of talked through how I hated that model. Obviously I did the deal. Everyone loves that deal in paper, but at the end of the day is, I hated the concept where I'm having to fight against, this ultimately this agent who didn't know about creative. And because she was trying to protect her client, which I'm thankful that she was wanting to do that and trying to do that, you know, I had such a hard time with that deal because it was constantly trying to die. I'm like, look, this deal, we had two buyers walk away from it. Like, I have the skills to close this deal and to be able to explain to all parties involved. And I'm just like trying to get everyone in the same room. Agent didn't want to get in the same room with me. And I'm like, trying to do this, right? And this is why when it comes to this, that's not the model I love, because I understand that people have limiting beliefs that, call it a myth, call it a limiting belief, call it this mindset. And so I do my best to combat limiting beliefs with having a relationship, because there's plenty of agents I do deals with who don't have experience doing creative deals, but they still do the deal, and they do the deal with me. And it's a form of a deal that I love, because they're not hindering the deal, right? They're collaborating in the deal. And it's because that relationship exists. They like, know, and trust me. And so now there doesn't mean that they're not willing to stop, ask questions, and, find answers. But at the same time, it's important to understand that other people in your transaction, it could be the seller, it could be the agent, it could be you. I've even had title attorneys who've had limiting beliefs around creative financing. And so it's important to understand that these exist. So I already told you, I believe I mentioned this earlier, but yeah, no, I did, that confused minds say no. So I want to repeat that again. And the reality there is, if they don't understand it, people will shut down. I see this happen across the board. And so a huge part there is you want to understand that everyone involved in the party can influence, everyone that's party to the deal can influence the deal. So these are, again, agents, CPAs, attorneys, family members who are not on title, all of that. So, but understand that you also have some limiting beliefs. So for example, one of the biggest limiting beliefs I had going into the learning about the world of creative financing many, many years ago, is that I felt like I was begging the seller to do me this favor, to, finance this deal for me, to do the seller financing, to allow me to do subject to whatever. And a huge part to that is, again, that limiting belief of that they're helping me, I didn't see it as a way that I was helping them, right? But really, one of the big things there is I had to have that mental shift that I was helping them with my offer, that my creative offer was a solution to their problem. So I had to have that shift. Another limiting belief is that, a lot of people have this, that, oh, well, the property's not free and clear. You can't do that kind of stuff. Okay, well, great. We're no longer doing maybe seller financing. Now we might be looking at subject to, or something like a wrap or something like that around their existing loan. Again, it's having different tools and know when you pull that tool out to help that situation. For the longest time, I've talked about it being a tool belt, and, like a handyman at the job, and I use different tools to solve different, to do different jobs. But I really think it's more of like a doctor, where I have different types of things that once I listen to the situation, I can, I could diagnose and prescribe. And so I'm like, oh, okay. So I heard you say that you have a loan on this property. Okay. So now I'm gonna say, hey, well, in the event that, I can help you out with this situation, this problem, by taking over, making your payments on your behalf, is that something that you'd be open to hearing more about? And so understand, again, I'm listening, and then I'm diagnosing with a tool that I have, right? With something that I can do to help. And then I'm seeing if that's something they want to walk further towards. A huge limiting belief is that all buyers default, right? I don't skip talking about default. I do my best, where I'm like, I want to pull the sting out of that objection by just talking about it. And so, for example, so one of my top mentors, Pete Fortunato, he's got a binder with these clear sleeves in them. If you don't know who he is, I highly recommend that you find out who he is. But he has a clear binder. He's been investing since 1965. And every time he has made a promise for like a loan, and he has paid it off, he has put that in one of those sleeves. So it's the whether it's like the purchase agreement, the note, and then the paid off note, or just like the paid off note, whether it's a private money lender, whether it's a subject to deal, whether it's a, what seller finance, whatever that looks like. And he called that his credibility one. I literally just yesterday got another in the mail. I had about 3 weeks ago, well, maybe more than 6 weeks ago, I sold a deal that I bought in 2021 subject to. And when I sold it, just recently I got in the mail though, the paid off notes. Well, guess what's going in my credibility binder? And that's something where, it takes time, but you say, Courtney, I might be new. I don't have something like that. Well, do you have a purchase agreement for a deal that you bought with a bank loan, but then you have a closing statement to say, I told you I'd buy your house, and then here's a closing statement that said I did? Do you have something as simple as that you could start building? It's the building blocks of your foundation that says, when I say I'm going to do something, I want to show you that I believe, the people don't make, the world is not made with the same people we used to have, right? There's a lot of people who don't care to do what they say they're going to do. But I like to say, hey, I have so many receipts of when I said I'd do something, I would do it. Y'all, I got a comp, and I just had a big wave of emotion at me because I got probably one of the best compliments of my career the other day. Brand new agent called me, Courtney, I have a listing that I have a lot of problem with. I was told to call you. I said, sure, I'd love to talk with you. So we talked. I said, I think that's something I can help with. Let's meet. I ended up meeting with her and the two young sellers. They had, already moved out on the property, and they were now juggling rent and a mortgage. The property, they had just dropped the property $100,000 from their first listing price. It had been on the market for many months. They're afraid that they're going to go into foreclosure, and there's just no confidence at what number it'll sell at. And so, long story short, I met with them. I met with them for about 2 hours at the property, talking with them about some different options. One or two of them, including me, the rest, including, some things they could do that were not with me. And at the end of it, I called the agent later that afternoon, and she goes, Courtney, you are exactly who I was told you are. And you did exactly what I was told you would come in and do. You came in and you listened and you helped, and you were not there to just, let me just quickly just get to the money, or, get to how can I profit on this? And she was like, literally when she said that, that was huge because again, that is also a big way. I no longer buy properties with, like I don't go to the bank. I don't know what my credit score is. I could probably find out because the banks do it now. Like when you log into Capital One and stuff, you see it. But the reality is the majority of my deals I buy with credibility. And that credibility comes from, I have sowed a lot into my reputation. I have sowed a lot into my track record. And so I want to encourage you to consider that as being something worth having on the table. For example, with this objection, all buyers default, I said, look, I understand that this is scary. Let's talk about what it would look like. Best case scenario, I deed the property back to you. And worst case scenario, you have to foreclose. Let's talk about how, in Louisiana, it costs generally around this much, and it takes about this long. I am happy to either give you some cell phone numbers of attorneys or some sellers who I have bought from before, if you would want to hear firsthand accounts from people who have done business with. I can tell you that I've never had a property taken back, or I've never defaulted on one. But at the end of the day, these people are people who could verify it. And the majority of the time, they say, hey, no, the way you treated me thus far, I feel comfortable, but thank you for offering that. And so don't skirt around things like default. But understand, a lot of people have dealt with other people who don't care about their word. And so understand, you have to handle this objection. I handle it head on, and I find out, do you want my referrals? Do you want to see this credibility binder? Do you want to do? The majority of the time, because they're coming from referrals, they don't need it, but I still offer it. And then last two ones, only broke buyers. Only broke buyers ask for this, meaning like creative financing is reserved for the people who don't have money, who they don't have money, and they like this is the only way they can get into property. I tell people all the time that, yeah, I get into deals with little to no money on my pocket. So like that last deal was 7,400. But at the end of the day, it's important to understand that just because I might be doing deals with low to no money. Doesn't mean it doesn't require money in the bank to fulfill your promise. And so for me, the majority of the time I'm doing creative financing because that is what the deal demands to help the seller, not because that's what my bank account demands. And so that's an important thing to keep in mind. But that is sometimes some people's limiting beliefs. And then lastly, just because you wouldn't do the deal, they won't. Stop thinking for other, sellers. Stop negotiating against yourself. Same thing with agents. Sometimes they're like, oh, they would never do that. I right now am working a deal, and I don't work a ton of REO deals, but they're coming more and more across my desk. An agent called me, Courtney, I need help. And she goes, wait, by the way, I have this other deal maybe you can help me on. And it's a new construction that was 90 something percent finished. They did not finish it. And it's just sitting on the market. And my market, again, it's very tough, facing a lot. And so ultimately, I made a cash offer. And then I said, I know this sounds a little strange, but if they're open to seller financing, here's where I could be at. And she's like, well, I don't think they'll do that. It's an REO company. They had taken the property back at this point. But we're at a point now where they actually said, yeah, we're open to that. And so I just went and looked at it the other day, made my updated offer, and literally waiting to see back if an REO company will take seller financing. I don't think, like previously, I think I had a limiting belief that they would be open to that, but then this is what we see, right? So don't think for other parties, even with agents, again, the more you build that relationship, even when they will respect the relationship enough to say, I don't know if they'll take that, but for the sake of the relationship, I'll still send it. Know that when people say all the time, agents won't submit my offer, it's because you're doing it to someone who's not an ally, point blank. All right. So my belief here is that agents, they're a one-to-many influence, that ultimately that when they are agents are spending money direct to seller marketing to find people who want to list, people who want to buy, all of that. So I have always seen this as, let's just say there's a picture to the right. It's a picture of a field. There's a tree line. There's a ton of people out front, and there's a person standing in front. I have always considered this new business model that I've been doing for many years now, for a handful of years now. I see it more as this picture where I am, a little girl just went missing. She was last seen, going near these woods. And what am I doing? I'm saying, hey, I don't have enough manpower to go help find this little girl, right? This little girl needs to be found. She needs help. I don't have enough bandwidth. And so what am I doing? I'm standing in front of a group of people. And I'm saying she was last seen wearing a pink dress with polka dots. She was, her name's Susie. She's got little blonde hair. She's about 4 foot tall. She has a backpack, whatever. She was last seen by this tree line. And I'm giving a very clear message where ultimately she, what I'm doing is I'm standing in front of people and I'm saying, this is what I need you to go look for. And then call me if you find her. Call me if you see this. In the same way, I'm standing in front of agents and I'm saying, hey, if you've got a client who's facing foreclosure, if you have a client who is scared they're going to start to get behind on their payments because they really, one of them just lost their job and they don't know how much longer they can, afford living in this house. And I'm literally giving them story after story of what to go look for. And then I'm sending them out into my market and they're spending their own marketing dollars with me in mind. And they're coming back to me and they know when to pick up the phone and call me and say, hey, Courtney, I found what you're looking for. I found a client that is doing this, this, and this. And so, guys, this is so huge because at the end of the day, because I run a referral based and a repeat business model, my message has to be clear because they're not going to know when to pick up the phone to call me. If you just say we buy houses, that is not enough. And so this is huge. I moved away from spending a ton of money on direct to seller marketing to now, I am getting in front of those agents who are then spending the money to do that. So know that that's part that's different. I'm going to go really quick. Tom, talk to me about time. How am I doing on time? Because,
yeah, we normally go between 11:30. So like you're kind of on the end of that 11:30 time. But
go ahead and go ahead.
I did want to kind of just point out two things of what you just talked about. I love going to worst case scenario with all of those things that you think that they're fearing. Anytime you sense a fear in them going to that worst case scenario and explaining to them how they get out of that. And really, sometimes worst case scenario isn't as bad as they think it is when you actually explain it to them. And also, one thing I wanted to point out as well, we are listing houses right now for some of these REOs and some of these houses that have been taken back by lenders. And we're actually being told by our lenders up front that they would be willing to take seller finance potential options. Now, normally they're not options I would normally buy, but I actually think the whole lenders world has kind of changed. And you have to understand, lenders are lenders, and they understand how to hold paper. They don't really understand how to hold the actual assets. So I actually think that's changing. So just to kind of, add a little bit more of that to you, from that limited belief of lenders may not want to take a creative financing, I think they're way more open to it than they have been in the past.
Look, absolutely. And again, with the changing market, you have to assess your limiting beliefs and your mindsets as well. So I'm going to briefly just talk about some high points on this, and then I'm going to finish out my slides. This is a subject to deal that I did on a 2010 build. This came from an agent who I had previously helped. She called me and said, Courtney, I have a Courtney deal. And I'm like, all right, I'm rubbing my hands together saying, what does that mean to you? Client is facing foreclosure. They don't have a ton of equity. And I'm competing against basically the second phase of construction. And so ultimately, they could put on the MLS, but it was going to struggle to sell because it's a 2010 build competing against all the 2023 builds. And so maybe you're like, Courtney, your last deal was a duplex in the hood. Well, okay, this is a 2010 spec build. And so I've been able to get these great, what I call legacy properties, great areas, people want to live in, great condition. This house needed 1,500 in repairs. Like, it needed like a fridge and a few little things. And the reality here is I tapped into that 3.875% loan. The agent knew to come to me. She said, literally, we had never explored a subject to deal before. This agent did not know what it was, but I said, hey, Stephanie, I do think I can help. Let's go ahead and set a time. I want to see the house. We get there. The sellers are sitting in the kitchen table. Actually, that one right there in that photo. We walk in and they say, hey, Teresa, and this is Courtney. And they're like, it's Teresa and Jerry. This is Courtney. And the agent puts her hand on my shoulder, said, this is the woman I told you about. She's going to sit here and talk with us, and we're going to find a solution for you with this problem. I trust her. Listen to what she has to say. Agent then proceeds to shut up and let me talk. We ink out a subject to deal and ultimately this is one where I could dive more into some of the technical, maybe some other time we can chat through it. But the reality here is, guys, is that so many people think I'm not direct to seller with these, deals that I'm doing with agents. No. This agent, I want them to think of me as the ace in their back pocket when their listing needs the solutions I have to offer. And so the agent literally put me direct to seller and sat down and got out of the way. And she just co-signed that this is a good solution. Now, she asked good questions, right? She asked questions to make sure she's still protecting her client. But those are important things to keep in mind. Ultimately now, I think I didn't update this, but I think it's at like 149 current principal. And so ultimately the numbers, when I bought it, between the cash I had to bring to the table, the 28,000 I had to bring to the table, plus the 176,000 on the loan, I was pretty much, I didn't have much equity, but because it was such a low interest rate loan, I currently now am in between the 70 and 75% loan to value because I gave it time. And this was a deal in January of last year. So it's, 16, 18 months now. And I was able to build in more equity with time because of the lower interest rate loan. All right. And again, zero marketing cost. It came, yes, I had to pay commissions at the closing, but I would rather pay, cost at the closing of a deal than cost monthly, hoping a deal will happen. Real quick, this is actually the post that the agent made. This is actually Teresa and Jerry, who were the owners of this house. The agent posted, she said, today's closing might be my favorite since I became a realtor. First reason, these folks right here prove that real estate is all about people and that the rest falls into place when you value each other. She goes on to talk about working with the title attorney. She said, third reason today, I was reminded that what I do is a privilege and responsibility. I get to watch people make big changes and find their way to new beginnings. It's truly an honor. And ultimately, there's absolutely nothing like working with people to find solutions to find in a new way to a new home. And so the agents that I'm working with, they get it. It's about solving people's problems. They're willing to put, profit aside. Literally, this agent said 3% for dual agency. So I paid 1.5 and 1.5 for both sides, right? I've had agents say, hey, if you need me to get out of the way to help my seller, please, whatever you need, I want to help them as well. Now, I'm not trying to screw agents just to get a buck. I want to make sure I'm sewing into that relationship with that agent so we can do deals again. So, but just to see here, all right. I wanted to go past that last deal. So how am I doing this again? It's a very clear message, guys. It is so important that people know when to pick up the phone. I think way too many people are silent professionals, but very specifically, we buy houses is not a clear message. Because we buy houses, like there's no reason why you should buy my house right now, right? So we buy, that does not mean every house. I would encourage you to get clearer on your message. So that very clear message needs to my favorite way to get clear on it is by storytelling. Hey, if you have a client who is facing, foreclosure, or like right now I have someone with Chinese drywall and they can't sell the house, but it might be a deal that it makes sense for me to buy subject to, and I can tap into some equity as well because no one else is willing to buy it with the Chinese drywall, even though it's just a small percentage of exposure is what we're assuming at this point. So additionally, I was going the wrong way. The other part of that is you guys got to build allies. Agents are not the enemy, guys. They're not the enemy. Literally get in front of them, go have lunch with them, talk with them. Because truly, I've had agents become business partners. I've had agents become private money lenders. I've had agents, sell me their family properties. Numerous agents call me. My mom's facing foreclosure. Courtney, you're who I trust. Hey, Courtney, can you come buy my parents' childhood home? I don't even have it in me to list it. All these things, become an ally to help them. Leon Johnson, again, I mentioned him earlier, one of my mentors, one of my top 3 mentors. He said, we start out in life seeking opportunities. If we are honest, trustworthy, and competent, opportunities begin to seek us. Guys, again, it's how you do real estate matters. So if you're trying to cut people out of deals, if you're not being honest, if you're not following through, even when it hurts, there's a level there that business won't come back around. Referrals won't happen. And again, that competent part also is important. And lastly, I want to encourage you just to be a helper. Look, I seek out every day to say, hey, how can I be a helper and how can I ask for help where I need help? And truly that serves me well. The more people I'm helping, the more business is flowing. And so as I told you earlier, how you do real estate matters. I just want to encourage you to evaluate, what you're doing, how you're doing, how you're, hey, are there people that you're like, hey, you know what? I really should reach out to this agent. We should go have lunch or coffee, or, you know what? I bet there's some agents who don't know what I actually can do and help, right? And so those things are so important, guys. Show up as a helper in your community. So lastly, here's just, if you scan here, I think that takes you to my Instagram. I'd love to connect with you guys online, whether it's through Facebook, Instagram. CourtneyFricke.com has the links to, my Instagram and stuff like that, as well as my podcast. But Tom, thank you so much for having me today. I just really want to encourage you guys. Stay plugged in. This is a great group, but I want to encourage you to say, hey, how can I show up today to go help people? And how can I ask for help where I need help? Thank you, Tom. I'm welcome. I don't know if there's any questions, but more than happy to help.
Yeah. If anybody has any questions, please put them in the chat real quick. We're going to be closing down here in a couple of minutes. But thank you so much, Courtney, for sharing today. I appreciate your time, investment in our community. And I really love what her entire approach to this entire matter. Realtors are not just realtors because they're trying to get a commission. Realtors can be your best friend. And by influencing a realtor, you're actually not just influencing one person. Every single time you go out and you talk to one person and you're trying to buy their one house, you're kind of completely missing the big picture. It almost would be better to pay a realtor to get them on your side for that one house and let them potentially send you 10 more deals down the road. It kind of all goes back to one of the most important things in business that I talk about with my team is the lifetime value of a customer. So if the lifetime value of that one realtor that you can give influence to is so much greater. And I love how you said don't cut people out of deals, and that's another thing. I learned from one of my mentors years ago. You want to cut people in your deals, so stop thinking about cutting people out of your deals.
Yep.
Start trying to find ways to cut people in your deals, because if you give them an incentive to help you, then my favorite thing is to pay somebody on a deal. I would much rather pay somebody on a deal than try to keep somebody out, because I know that one time I've paid them is going to pay me back. It's kind of like investing. Every time I'm paying a realtor, every time I'm paying somebody like Courtney's talking about, even for people that help raise money for our fund, like I want to make sure if you sent me somebody and they're going to invest in our fund, I want to make sure I'm giving that referral fee back to you, because like it's important to me for you to know, number one, I'm going to do it. I say I'm going to do, but number two, there's something in it for you to
Right.
also help me. So appreciate that, Courtney. Thank you so much.
Yeah, look, it's huge. Don't bite the hand that feeds you, and think of relationships as ATMs. If you're only withdrawing, it's going to start beeping and yelling at you.
Yeah.
So deposit as much as possible. That second deal, the subject to one, that deal happened because it started in the living room of another deal where I didn't profit from that deal, but all I did was help.
Mhm.
And so be willing again to deposit, maybe with time, with your knowledge, whatever that looks like.
And these things take time. I think every one of these deals that she's talked about, we're not talking about time as in like a month. These are like 12 months, 18 months. Sometimes these deals really take time. So making sure you have a good follow-up system, making sure that you understand that that's going to be the case up front, is also a big mind shift for a lot of us investors who just want to go out to the store and buy something and then make it happen the next day. So want to remind everybody about the next call before we get off here, August 27th. 10 a.m. Central. Let your friends know. It'll be a good call with Jim. I potentially, I'm going to kind of put this out there. I potentially have some very big news that we're going to announce about our good success community in that call as well. I'm excited about it. And we're also going to be going over a lot more about what's going to happen in the free for all event. And if you're going to be coming to the free for all event, some information will be given on that call as well. So hopefully you guys can make it to that call. Let your friends know. God bless, guys. Hope you guys have a good day. Love every one of you. Appreciate you, and have a good day, everybody. God bless.
Thanks, everyone.